And we're back on Southeast Texas Weekly. James Shannon is here with us to talk about politics, along with Kent Batman, Hardin County GOP chairman, and Carolina Ramirez, a Democratic activist extraordinaire. Great to see you all. Thanks for coming in. On this House immigration reform bill, let's go back to this matter, because this would be some of the most important political news to come into the weekend, it appears. If there are, in fact, 40 to 50 House Republicans willing to support the comprehensive immigration reform bill, it could be passed. The president would sign it. It would be blockbuster legislation.
I think it may pass because one reason: Republicans need it. And the Tea Party zealots in the House and their running buddies like Mr. Stockman here notwithstanding, if there's a majority that will vote for that in the House, Boehner's going to have to find some way to bring it to the floor. Let me correct something Steve said about border security, so-called. There are border security provisions in this bill, billions and billions of dollars.
Are there any mandates that say that they have to be accomplished by a certain time?
The percentages, that's an ephemeral target. Let me tell you something.
There are no.
You could park.
Mr. Batman, are there any actual promises we'll have this taken care of within the bill?
Promises are at least as good as they were in '86.
Now that's terrifying. That's a little.
No, wait a minute. No, I mean, I wouldn't agree. I think because the GOP is supporting this, that they would have expected some kind of guidelines to go through beforehand, such as border security and the like.
Critics on the Republican side have said that while there is language within the bill that would say we're going to do this, that, or the next thing, border surge, if you will, to protect the border, that there are no, far be it from me to even say guarantee in political terms, but there's not only no guarantee that the border would be any more protected than it is today, but there are no safeguards that the Homeland Security Department could essentially willy-nilly.
You're wrong, Kevin. There's not notions, there's dollars in the bill for border security. What you're talking about is a number that below which the immigration reform can tick in, but until then, no. The fact is, illegal immigration is down on the border. I don't care if you park 2 or 3 Army divisions down along the Rio Grande.
Is it down
and
because
built
of border security, or is it down because the influx into the nation from the southern border has lessened?
Because of the economy.
Well, obviously it's down because it's lessened, but you know, I think there's a number of reasons, but the economy obviously is one of them. But this notion that you build a 12-foot fence, guess what? Here comes somebody with a 13-foot ladder. We need to get to grips with the immigration issue.
I mean, does it make any sense to either of my Democratic friends here that if you put in place a measure that would legalize 11 million persons within the nation, that you want to make sure that at least you cap off the undocumented immigration that would follow that 11 million? Does that make any sense?
Sure,
why is that such a...
Isn't it a 13-year process they're proposing?
Exactly. I mean, it's going to take a while for a lot of these people to legalize to begin with. And like you said before, there's already a lowering in numbers of the people that are actually crossing the border. So, I mean, I say make this solution happen, you know, about immigration, about the people that are here, because there are things already being done. Like I mentioned before, there are 20,000 troops on the border already. You know, there are drones on the border already. So, I mean, these things have happened. And
Kent, they will give the Republican Party for a generation credit for having done this, correct?
It never happened. Never happened. It won't help, but you know, 13 years. What I found is most immigrant groups come in starting out as Democrats, but they become Republicans as they get better jobs and do better.
So you just got to think the long
The long term is
we'll see.
Immigrants generally become Republicans.
We'll see on how
that is an optimist.
If they don't self-support.
Credit for optimism. Oh, the president says we're safer from terrorism than we are from car crashes. In speeches around the nation this week in the West, should surveillance programs be scaled back? The NSA programs, we're even learning about new programs in place now. The NSA programs are out there. There's a great deal of skepticism about whether some of the bills that have been proposed in the House anyway would actually prevent some of the potential abuses that Edward Snowden and others have have argued are intrusive to Americans. How do we see it on this panel?
Snowden just revealed what had been happening since right after 9/11. You know, in the wake of 9/11 and the Patriot Act, they ramped up surveillance. That was not a partisan issue. Democrats and Republicans both passed it. The idea now that you pick through the surveillance and quibble over the details and did the FISA court really authorize this? Did they provide adequate coverage? Those are points to be argued about, but the idea that you stop surveillance of any type, including, you know, phone calls between the U.S. and the Middle East and all the other things, I don't see it. I think it's much hysteria about nothing, and it's being fomented by a crew that would be against Obama on anything he did, plus people on the left who are against any surveillance at all.
Last word to the right this time.
If they have to keep lying about it, and we had the head of the NSA and everybody else, they change what they say a week after they speak in front of Congress. There's a reason they're lying. There's a reason they're covering up, and we just hadn't heard it yet.
We haven't found out what it is. We return with the question, is the snub on the Russian President Vladimir Putin good policy? After this break.